my name is Lisa Calamo. Welcome to our webcast with Cooper Levenson attorneys Alexander Rigdon and Cynthia Grob from the Family Law Group. Today we have Sean Dalton joining us, a fellow Cooper Levenson attorney. Sean, how are you?
I'm doing great. How about you, Lisa?
Great. Thanks so much for asking. Today, Lexi and Cynthia will be asking you a couple of questions. I'll pass it over to Lexi first.
All right. Hey, Sean. Sean and I have the same birthday for anyone who cares. I'm far more obnoxious about my birthday than he is. Our birthday, though. All right, Sean, thank you. Thank you for coming on. So in the family law department, we have temporary restraining orders that get filed against certain groups of people that fall under the statute, which we won't go into here. And right now, nobody can go to court to file a temporary restraining order. They have to go to the police station, and also any final restraining order hearings are actually being done remotely. And as you know, as being a former prosecutor, sometimes those charges are also filed in the municipal court. So can you tell everybody how that's being handled on the municipal/criminal side?
Sure, Lexi. Thanks for the question. You know, the wheels of justice continue to turn even during this pandemic. So the judiciary has come up with modified rules in order to make sure that people's rights are protected during this difficult time period we're all going through. So right now, what the Supreme Court has provided are rules for municipal courts to continue operation during the pandemic. Most of the hearings that are taking place, if somebody pleads not guilty, the charges will be heard, but it will be virtually, like most everything else that's being done now. So a lot of cases which are going to be disposed of, expeditiously as far as a guilty plea can be done by mail. But if you want a trial, then it will be held virtually. It will be up to the court to decide the parameters as far as the scheduling and so forth. But for those domestic violence cases where an individual is charged with a criminal offense, a disorderly persons offense in municipal court, that matter will be heard as we hopefully wind down during this pandemic. We're hoping that things will start getting back to normal, but for the time being, at least, we are seeing cases being heard with respect to the virtual hearings that are taking place throughout New Jersey. But I would tell anyone to contact your municipal court clerk, because each court is different as to how they're handling it, but give them a call, find out what their schedule is. If you're pleading not guilty, they will tell you exactly what the schedule looks like as to when your case will be heard.
Thanks.
And as a follow-up question, Sean, in those types of proceedings, can defendants have their attorney present with them? So like in a virtual proceeding, how do you represent your client? Are you and your client in the same place? Or are you all linking into the same virtual environment?
Yes. So right now, they're basically doing what we're doing right now. They're handling things through a Zoom conference. You certainly can be with your client, at the same location, physical location, while the hearing takes place, but it's not absolutely necessary. It all depends on, what physically can be done as far as that. You want to ensure that, your client's rights are protected. I myself have been able to do it without the client being physically present with me when the hearing takes place. But I think the important part with respect to this whole issue is the fact that during this pandemic we're undergoing, Governor Murphy has issued an executive order declaring a public health emergency. And that public health emergency is through June 5th, which is next Friday. And at that time, even though the number of new cases are starting to diminish in New Jersey, which has the second highest death rate across the country, chances are he's going to extend that public health emergency for another month. And as a result, police will be enforcing the social distancing orders, the guidelines in place with respect to dealing with this terrible pandemic. By last count, there was about 36 people who were charged with terroristic threats during a public health emergency. And basically, anyone who threatens a police officer or a EMT or basically anyone and spits or coughs or says, I have the COVID virus, and does something of that nature, they're going to be criminally prosecuted. And instead of typically what would be a third-degree offense, it's increased to a second-degree offense because it happened during a public health emergency. And for a second-degree offense, you're looking at 5 to 10 years New Jersey State Prison. So they're not around with that. Each week, the Attorney General and the Superintendent of the State Police announce all the individuals who have been charged as a result of this pandemic. So they're not messing around. And while the overall crime rate has decreased in New Jersey during this pandemic, because most people are staying at home, abiding by the social distancing rules, as things start to relax, and I know recently the governor increased the number of individuals who can gather outside to 25, indoors it's 10, there are still rules in place with respect to wearing your mask and so forth to ensure that everyone stays safe during this time.
Yeah, we've seen an uptick, of course, in family law matters where parents are having issues between one another as to the level of social distancing that they're engaging personally within each of their respective homes. Have you had any reports of that trickling down to municipal charges flowing between individuals, or is it more related, the statistics are more related to when individuals choose to take an action against the police or a first responder?
Most of the cases seem to involve when individuals act out against police or other first responders, but there's been examples of, for example, restaurants where individuals are preparing food and they're not wearing a mask while making a pizza or something like that, where the police have charged those individuals with violating the social distancing rules with respect to the COVID virus. Now, in that instance where somebody's just not complying with the rules in place with respect to that, that's a disorderly persons offense where they'll be issued a summons. They're not going to be arrested, but they'll be issued a summons for violating the social distancing rules and wearing a mask and so forth, and that will be handled in municipal court. So it could happen in a family situation, but typically it shouldn't happen, especially if they've been in the same house for a certain time period. I think it may be difficult to criminally prosecute that, but certainly when people are out or trying to open up their business, things of that nature, they need to continue complying with the rules with respect to the governor's executive order.
Got it. Okay. Thanks, Sean.
Great. Thank you so much, Sean. We like to wrap these up by asking a little bit of a fun question. So this question is going to be, what restaurant do you miss going to the most?
I miss going to any restaurant. I'd love to eat. I do have to say that I do miss being in our Atlantic City office where on the first floor we have Esquires, and I smell bacon constantly throughout the day, which always helps your appetite. So I miss that, but I miss going out to some place like maybe Bonefish and having a nice meal and a nice drink to go along with that. So hopefully we'll be getting back to somewhat normal conditions, and we'll be able to do that in the future, at least outside maybe.
Yeah, definitely.
Cynthia,
Lexi, how about you?
Oh, all right. Well, this is going to sound very hoity-toity, but a few months ago, I went to John George in Philly, which is at the top of one of the tallest buildings, and it's in the Four Seasons, and it was just the most stunningly beautiful restaurant I've ever been in. I mean, the food was great, but the views were to die for, and so I keep having that in my mind's eye that once we're all back eating indoors, I just want to go back to John George. It's stunning in there, so it's like a perfect date night.
Yeah,
Awesome.
we've
I'm
done
not
it many times.
I'm not as hoity-toity as you, but I miss my Mexican restaurant, my local Mexican restaurant. I'm in Pennsylvania, so our restaurants are still closed, but my restaurant, Cancun, I've taken takeout from them quite a few times since our closures because I am in dire need of my Mexican fix.
Love Mexican food. Love it.
Yeah. The best.
Yeah.
Lisa, how about you?
I miss, we always do Sundays at Rittenhouse Park, whether it's Devon or Park. So we are missing that deeply. We live in Philly. So can't wait for that to open back up.
Yeah.
The little things you never thought you'd have to say goodbye to.
I know. So sad. Well, thank you so much, Sean, for joining us. We really appreciate it. And, thanks so much. Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
Yes.
Lee.
Bye.
Have a great day.
You guys, hopefully.